Welcome to the shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and the things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Welcome back, my shadowy friends, to the shadow frequency. I'm Juniper, and tonight I suggest keeping both feet planted firmly on the floor, because apparently that is not something everybody in tonight's story managed to do. You know, there are haunted house stories where the floorboards creak, a door opens on its own, maybe somebody touches a pale face in a window. Creepy stuff. Perfectly respectable ghost behavior. Tonight's case does not stay respectable. We are going to Gary, Indiana, and pulling out the file on the Ammons Haunting, the demon house of Gary, the boy who locked up the wall. In 2011, Latoya Ammons, her mother, and 3 children moved into a rental house on Carolina Street. Soon they claimed black flies were appearing in the dead of winter. Footsteps came from the basement. A shadowy figure was seen inside the house. The children began behaving strangely. And then the story escaped the house. Doctors became involved. Child Protective Services opened a case. Police investigated. A Catholic priest performed exorcisms. And according to a child services account later reviewed by reporters, one little boy did something inside a hospital that should have been physically impossible. He allegedly walked backward up a wall. That, my friends, is why this one has stayed with people. It is a demon story tangled up with official records, medical professionals, police officers, frightened children, and one house that no longer exists. Chris, let me start with you. When you hear all of that, where does your mind go?
Honestly, June, the flies bother me more than they probably should.
Yeah.
You expect people in a haunting story to report shadows and footsteps, but swarms of black flies in an Indiana winter? That is such a nasty little opening detail. And then, once the children become involved, the whole thing gets uncomfortable very quickly.
It really does. The flies almost feel like the house clearing its throat before it starts speaking. Matt, what about you? This case has got police, doctors, a priest, child services. Everybody seems to walk into it carrying a different explanation.
And that is exactly why I find it fascinating. You can dismiss one frightened family. People do that every day, but then other people enter the story, and some of them leave with questions of their own. I think the real mystery tonight is not simply whether there were demons in that house. It is what all these people actually experienced.
Yeah, and whether 5 different explanations can all circle the same event without any of them quite touching the truth. All right, my shadowy friends, the porch is buzzing, something is moving in the basement, and with that, Matt, open the file.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson, produced by Juniper Ravenwood, with Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper. And yeah, what happened in that house is the question, because this case starts somewhere painfully ordinary. Gary, Indiana, late 2011. Latoya Ammons moves into a rental house on Carolina Street with her mother, Rosa Campbell, and Latoya's 3 children, ages 7, 9, and 12. November turns to December. Indiana winter settles in. The family says large black flies begin gathering on the screen porch. They kill them, sweep them up, and more appear. Then come footsteps from the basement. Doors seem to move. Rosa describes seeing the shadowy figure of a man inside the home. Before anybody says demon, there is simply a family listening to something move beneath their feet. And somewhere below them is that basement, dark and unfinished, with a staircase leading into a part of the house that suddenly feels less like storage and more like an open door, because the flies were only the first thing that came inside. According to Latoya and Rosa, the activity escalated quickly. The children began speaking in deep voices. Their expressions changed. One boy allegedly growled threats and seemed at moments like somebody else had taken control. Latoya said one son was thrown across the room. Then came the story of the 12-year-old daughter. Latoya and Rosa claimed the girl was unconscious on a bed when they saw her rise above the mattress. Not sit up, not roll, rise. The girl reportedly remembered nothing afterward. Imagine being the mother in that room. Your child is asleep or unconscious. Your own mother is beside you, and the person you love is somehow above the place gravity says she belongs. After that, every dark room feels occupied and every noise becomes a warning. The family prayed and began using the language of possession because, from their point of view, something was not merely haunting the house anymore. It appeared to be reaching for the children, and soon people outside the family would be close enough to witness the crisis for themselves. I have something from the file tonight, and it is not a sort of item that changes the temperature of a case. It is a copy of the Child Services case narrative described in the reporting that brought the Ammons story national attention. At Methodist Hospital, DCS personnel were already involved, and the children were being observed. According to the account reviewed by reporters, a family case manager said one of the boys went backward up a wall toward the ceiling, flipped over his grandmother, and landed on his feet. A nurse was also said to have witnessed it. Let that sit there. This was not Latoya telling a paranormal television crew years later that something impossible once happened. A government child services employee put an extraordinary event into a case narrative. The famous incident did not happen in the Carolina Street basement. It happened around professionals, under hospital lights, in a building designed to identify what was wrong with people. And according to the case account, the boy still went up the wall. From there, the circle around the family widened. Doctors became involved. Psychologists evaluated the children. DCS opened a formal case. Gary police entered the story. Yet Latoya and Rosa continued to insist something dark had invaded their lives. The children's voices changed. Violent episodes came and went. Rosa described a threatening male shadow inside the home. The basement took on a particularly sinister place in the story. And that is what bothers me about Carolina Street. This was not an abandoned mansion with 100 years of ghost lore. It was a rental house. Families move into places like it every day. You carry in boxes, choose bedrooms, plug in lamps, tell the kids to settle down. Then weeks later, you're killing black flies in December and listening to footsteps below the floor. By the spring of 2012, the family would meet a Catholic priest who listened to the story, visited the location, and came away believing the fear inside that house had a spiritual cause. And once the priest entered, the word haunting was about to become something much darker. Reverend Michael Maginot became involved in April 2012. He interviewed the family, spoke with people connected to the situation, visited the location, and considered the case through the Catholic understanding of spiritual affliction. According to his later public accounts, he concluded the family was dealing with genuine demonic activity. For Latoya, that must have been terrifying confirmation. She had spent months saying her children were changing, that something was attacking the family, that the house felt occupied by a presence. Then a priest arrives, studies the situation through theological system that he knows, and says he believes something demonic is happening. Maginot ultimately performed religious rites connected to the case and conducted 3 major exorcisms on Latoya in June 2012, 2 reportedly in English and 1 in Latin. 3 exorcisms centered on Latoya herself. So here's the question that creeps in. If Carolina Street was the source, why was Latoya the one receiving the rites? Was something living in the house? Or had it attached itself to a person it intended to carry beyond those walls? Because by then, leaving the property may not have meant leaving the presence. And then there are the police. Gary Police Captain Charles Austin reportedly began by suspecting the family might be inventing the story. He was not a paranormal investigator arriving to hunt a demon. He was a police captain confronting an extraordinary claim. Yet after becoming involved, Austin publicly said he believes something supernatural was connected to the case. Officers visited the Carolina Street property more than once, and reporting on the investigation described unusual experiences and photographs associated with those visits. Look at the circle now. Latoya says something is wrong. Rosa says something is wrong. The children behave in frightening ways. A DCS case manager reports the wall-walking incident. A nurse is said to have seen it. A priest becomes convinced enough to perform exorcisms. A police captain who began suspicious walks away publicly discussing the supernatural. That still does not name what happened, but the story kept reaching beyond the family and touching people who had their own reasons to be cautious. And by the time the state removed the children from Latoya's custody, the Ammons haunting was no longer just a ghost story. It had become a collision between a family, the state, the church, the police, and whatever may have been waiting on Carolina Street. And the house was not finished yet. That is what gets me, guys. The story keeps expanding. Every time you think you have reached the edge of it, somebody else walks through the door and sees enough to stay in the story.
And I still cannot get past the hospital. A haunted house is one thing. Whatever this was apparently did not respect the property line.
No, and once a child services worker is describing a boy going backward up a wall, you have moved into very strange territory indeed.
Absolutely. But in the second half, we need to look at what the psychologists thought they were seeing, the explanation offered for that wall incident, and what happened after the family left Carolina Street, and the man who eventually bought the house and bulldozed it out of existence. Juniper and Chris will tune it over to you.
The flies came first, black against the wintered lass, where no flies should have been. By the time the children changed, the houses had already begun to feel hungry.
Thanks, Matt, and my shadowy friends somewhere out there right now. I know half of you are saying that house was evil, while the other half are probably trying to physically recreate walking backward up a wall. Please do not send us your emergency room bill. The weird thing is, we have not even reached the part where people start asking whether the family itself, not the house, was at the center of all this. We'll get there. But first, Chris, before anything else starts crawling out of the basement, the frequency is yours.
Thanks, June. I'll tell you, the bit that sticks with me is the hospital. Houses can be dark, creepy places, but fluorescent hospital lights are not exactly where you expect a demon story to peak. While you're pondering that one, give the Shadow Frequency a like and subscribe wherever you're listening. It genuinely helps the algorithms find other strange souls like us. We're on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast directories. Head to shadowfrequencypodcast.com for every episode. The companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to every platform. You can even buy us a coffee there to support the show. And send us an email or a voice message through the website. We may play yours on a future episode. June, back to you for today's mail.
Thanks, Chris. All right, time to fire up the spectral cosmic message materializer, flipping the brass switches, turning the questionable glowing dial, and there goes that buzzing sound Matt keeps insisting is completely normal. Let's see what has drifted through the ether tonight. We have a little envelope caught in the static, a bit of frost on the edges, smells faintly like cardboard boxes and mountain air. Got the seal cracked open here. This one's from Maisie in Colorado, who writes, "Hey, Shadow Frequency people, I listen on Spotify while delivering packages, usually when I'm out on the longer rural routes where the houses are spread out and my headlights are doing most of the work. Your haunting episodes are my favorite, with the ancient mystery shows a close second. I'll admit there have been a few nights where I've left a package on a porch and gotten back to the van a lot faster because of something Matt just said. Keep making the dark roads weirder, stay strange, Maisie in Colorado." Maisie, I am sorry and also just a tiny bit delighted that we have increased your package delivery speed. Honestly, rural Colorado roads, headlights, isolated porches, and the Shadow Frequency, that is either a fantastic listening environment or the opening 15 minutes of a horror movie. Thank you for riding the signal with us, Maisie, and my shadowy friends. Keep those messages coming. Email us at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. Your story, question, weird experience, or late-night observation might drift through the materializer on a future episode. Chris, speaking of things drifting around in the darkness, I believe you have something considerably farther away than Colorado for us in the Shadow News.
Cheers, June. Maisie, I completely understand the quick walk back to the van. There are some porches where you drop the package, take the photo, and do not investigate the strange noise behind the shed. A nearby exoplanet once thought to be too massive and hostile for life is now looking a lot more promising. Astronomers say GJ 3378b, a super-Earth about 25 light-years away, appears to be only about 2.3 times Earth's mass, not roughly 5 as first believed. That makes it much more likely to be a rocky world instead of a thick atmosphere mini-Neptune. Even better, it orbits inside the habitable zone of its cooler red dwarf star, where liquid water could potentially exist. June, I'll toss it back to you.
All right, thanks, Chris. So just to make sure I understand tonight correctly, children may be walking up walls in Indiana, and 25 light years away there might be a rocky planet sitting where liquid water could exist. Lovely. The universe continues to be extremely normal. All right, my shadowy friends, we're heading back to Carolina straight because there is another side to the Ammons case. Psychologists had concerns. There is a possible physical explanation for the wall-walking incident. And then Zach Baggins bought the house. Matt, take us back inside.
The report says the boy went backward up the wall and landed on his feet. You can call it fear, suggestion, or possession, but somebody in that hospital wrote down what they believed they saw.
Thanks, Juniper. Maisie delivering packages through Colorado with us in the cab. Now I'm picturing every dark porch light on her route flickering just as the next episode starts. And Chris, a potentially rocky world in the habitable zone, only 25 light years away, is exactly the sort of thing that makes our neighborhood feel bigger and stranger. But let's come back to Gary. DCS temporarily removed the children from Latoya's custody amid concerns about their welfare and about the way the possession claims were shaping the family. Latoya was given objectives to complete before reunification. That makes this tragic no matter what you believe about demons. 3 children are separated from their mother, while a family claiming supernatural attack now feels attacked by the system as well. Eventually, the Ammons family left Carolina Street. Latoya regained custody of her children in November of 2012, and believers immediately point to one chilling detail. After the family moved, the alleged demonic activity reportedly stopped. So did something remain in that house? Or did it follow the family only far enough to make sure they would never forget it? I promised you something to chew on, and this is where the strongest skeptical angle deserves room. I'm pulling another item from the file, a summary of the psychological evaluations discussed in the reporting. One evaluator concluded the youngest child's possession stories were inconsistent and believed he appeared to be participating in a delusional system perpetuated by his mother. There were also concerns the older children had been influenced by Latoya's interpretation of events. That gives us human explanation for how this could grow. A frightened mother becomes convinced the house is demonic. The children hear the language of possession. Every outburst becomes evidence. Investigator Joe Nickel also emphasized that the boy's grandmother was reportedly holding his hand during the wall incident. His reconstruction was that an agile child could brace his feet against the wall, walk upward while supported, and flip over her. One person sees a child climbing in a shocking way. Another sees possession. That is the skeptical case, and honestly, it's the best one. But the case manager reportedly saw the event and placed it into a child services narrative, and a nurse was also said to have witnessed it. Maybe the visual was misleading. Still, imagine standing in that hospital room. Would your rational explanation arrive first, or would fear beat it to the door? That is the fault line underneath this entire case. Everybody entered speaking a different language. Latoya spoke the language of demons. Doctors and psychologists spoke the language of mental health and suggestibility. DCS spoke the language of child safety. Police spoke the language of witnesses and incidents. Father Maginot spoke the language of spiritual warfare, and nobody necessarily had to be lying. Maginot could honestly see spiritual oppression where a psychologist saw children drawn into a parent's belief system. Captain Charles Austin could begin suspicious, experience enough strange circumstances to change his opinion, and still be interpreting events through his openness to the supernatural. The landlord reportedly said previous tenants had not described paranormal activity, and later occupants apparently did not report comparable experiences. Skeptics asked whether stress and repeated demon talk created a psychological pressure cooker. Believers asked whether the entity was attached to Latoya or her children rather than the building. Both sides look at the same silence after the family left and claim it as evidence. Carolina Street never gives us the clean answer we want. It gives us layers of testimony, belief, fear, and official paperwork stacked on top of one another until you start wondering what is underneath the final layer. Then Zach Baggins enters the story. In 2014, Baggins bought the Carolina Street property for a reported $35,000. By then, the Ammons case had moved from local fear and official records into paranormal mythology. Baggins investigated the location for what became the documentary Demon House and claimed something profoundly dark affected him and others connected with the investigation. But I want to keep our eyes on the original case. The files came before the cameras. The children were evaluated before anybody was planning a documentary. The DCS narrative, police involvement, and Father Maginot's exorcism are the spine of this story. Baggins is the eerie epilogue. He arrives years later and buys the physical centerpiece of the legend. And then, in 2016, the house is demolished, bulldozed, gone. No future investigator can monitor those rooms as they once stood. No building specialist can open every wall looking for the source of the winter flies. Maybe Baggins destroyed a dangerous location. Maybe he demolished an ordinary building that had become a magnet for a legend. Either way, the one physical object at the center of the case was removed from the evidence forever, and Carolina Street was left with an empty space where the mystery used to stand. So what are we left with? Not proof of demons, not a video of a girl levitating, not a measurement of impossible movement. We are left with something messier. Documented professionals colliding with extraordinary claims around 3 frightened children. The family lived there. Child services became involved. The children were temporarily removed. Medical and psychological evaluations happened. Gary police investigated aspects of the claims. Father Michael Maginot performed exorcism rites. Reporters reviewed extensive records with Latoya's authorization. Zach Baggins later bought the house, and the house was demolished. Those are the bones. Around them is the legend. Black flies in December, a shadow man, deep voices, a girl above a bed, a boy on a wall. Maybe a family under enormous stress built a belief system so powerful that every strange behavior became evidence of possession. Or maybe several unrelated people entered this story and witnessed enough to make them hesitate before calling it ordinary. That is why the Ammons case survives. It survives because a child services employee allegedly watched a little boy move backward up a hospital wall and wrote down what she believed she saw. The house is gone. The family moved on. The files closed. But that image remains. Fluorescent lights, a frightened grandmother, professionals nearby, and a child moving where a child should not move. And all these years later, something is still standing at the top of that wall, waiting for us to decide what we saw. And that is where I have to leave this one. The house is gone, but the wall-walking story survived the bulldozer. Maybe because somewhere in those records is a witness still trying to explain to herself what happened in that hospital room.
I think that is the part that makes it endure. You can explain the house, explain the flies, even explain the children being influenced by fear, but you still have to stand in that hospital and decide exactly what those witnesses saw.
And I hate that the house is gone. I understand why someone might want to destroy it, but the curious part of me keeps thinking, what if there was still an answer inside one of those walls?
Exactly. I'm not saying demons lived on Carolina Street. I'm saying enough people came into contact with this family and walked away with a very different explanation that I cannot comfortably close the file and call it nothing. And maybe that is the real horror of the Ammons Haunting. Nobody has to be lying for something terrible to have happened. Juniper, I'll turn it over to you.
They bulldozed the demon house until nothing was left but dirt and memory. The trouble is, nobody ever proved the thing inside was attached to the house.
Thanks, Matt. Tonight, we went into a rental house in Gary, Indiana, where black flies supposedly swarmed in winter. A family heard footsteps from the basement. Children behaved in terrifying ways, and one boy allegedly moved backward up a hospital wall. We followed the story through doctors, psychologists, Child Protective Services, Gary Police, Father Michael Maginot, and 3 exorcisms. And finally to Zach Baggins, who bought the house, investigated it, and eventually watched the physical center of this legend disappear beneath a bulldozer. Was Carolina Street home to something demonic? Was a frightened family trapped inside a powerful cycle of fear and belief? Or did several people speaking completely different languages of medicine, religion, law enforcement, and the paranormal all brush against something none of them could fully explain? The house is gone, the question is not. Thank you, my shadowy friends, for joining us on the Shadow Frequency. You can stop by our website, shadowfrequencypodcast.com, for episodes, the blog, show notes, merch, and a whole lot more. Keep sending us your emails and voice messages. We love hearing where you're listening and what strange cases keep you staring at the ceiling at night. We will be back with another mystery, another file, and another strange signal from the darker corners of the world. You guys want to say goodnight?
Absolutely. Good night, everybody, and thanks for spending some time in the shadows with us. And tonight, maybe do yourself a favor. If you hear flies buzzing in the middle of winter, don't go looking for the source alone.
Good night. Keep listening, keep asking questions, and maybe leave the wall climbing to the professionals. Cheers.
Good night, my shadowy friends. Keep the signal grounded, keep the shadows wired, and should you wake tonight to footsteps moving beneath the floor, remember, sometimes the scariest thing about a house is not what lives inside it. It is what walks out with you. Good night.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.